There comes a time when you stop pretending that everything is fine. You stop smiling on cue. You stop nodding in conversations that don't touch you. You stop waking up with that dull ache of hope, the one that says, maybe today will feel different, even though deep down you expect more of the same. There's a quiet sort of suffering that lives in people. Not the kind that cries out, not the kind that gets diagnosed. It's the suffering of the soul, the exhaustion that builds when your outer life goes on, but your inner life stands still. Nietzsche understood this kind of despair, but he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't offer bandages. He offered a mirror, a brutal, unflinching mirror. Not to break you, but to show you what you've become too afraid to face. And what you'll find in that mirror is not weakness, it's weight. The weight of having carried too much for too long in silence.
The weight of all the times you buried your grief beneath a schedule. Of all the times you put on strength like armor when you were falling apart inside. The world teaches you to keep going, to be strong. But Nietzsche asked, strong for what? Strong for whom? Are you strong in the service of your soul, or strong in the service of survival? There's a difference, and that difference matters, because there comes a moment, if you're lucky, when your old definition of strength begins to crack, when your resilience no longer feels noble, just necessary, when your endurance begins to look less like a virtue and more like a cage. And in that moment, something else wakes up, a deeper kind of strength, one that doesn't come from resisting pain, but from walking through it, from looking at life not as a thing to endure, but a thing to engage, to wrestle with, to shape, to meet on your terms. Nietzsche didn't tell people to avoid suffering. He told them to use it, to face it with intention, to turn it into fire, into fuel. Not because pain is good, but because running from it is worse. What breaks you isn't the pain itself, it's believing that the pain has no meaning. But when you face it, when you name it, when you carry it with your eyes open, something changes. It stops being your prison. It becomes your teacher. And what does it teach? That hope is not soft. Hope is not passive. Hope is not sitting still and wishing for rescue. Hope, real hope, is an act of rebellion. It's saying, I will not be defined by what broke me. I will not let the world tell me who I am. I will not hand over my becoming to fear. Hope is not pretending you're fine. Hope is knowing you're not, and still choosing to move forward anyway.
And Nietzsche's voice rises here, not to comfort, but to confront, to call out the parts of you that have started to fade, the parts of you that surrendered your fire to routine, that abandoned your purpose to fit in, that swallowed your voice to avoid standing alone. He'd ask, when did you start living like a ghost of yourself? When did your dreams become dangerous? When did your questions become unwelcome? When did your silence become safer than your truth? And he'd demand, wake up! Not because life is easy, not because you'll be saved, but because you have something within you that the world needs, and no one can express it but you. He called this your will to power, not power over others, but power over your own becoming. Power to choose meaning where others see chaos. Power to endure not as a victim, but as a creator. But that power isn't gifted. It's earned. You earn it in the quiet moments. In the morning you get out of bed when everything in you wants to give up. In the moment you speak your truth, knowing it might cost you everything. In the decision to rebuild your life, not once but over and over, every time it falls apart. Hope isn't a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to live. Eyes open, heart raw, voice trembling, but alive. Nietzsche believed that the most powerful person is the one who says yes to life. Not to comfort, not to ease, but to life in all its darkness, its contradiction, its unfairness, its wild, painful beauty. And you might be in the dark right now. You might feel alone in a crowd. You might have dreams no one believes in. You might carry pain no one can see. But Nietzsche would say, good. Not because you deserve pain, but because pain is a threshold. And if you walk through it, you don't come out the same. You come out with depth, with clarity, with the ability to hold both joy and grief without being broken by either. You come out with strength that isn't loud, but unshakable. So if you're losing hope, stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop waiting for the world to understand. Stop waiting for certainty. And instead, begin. Even with doubt, even with fear, even with trembling hands and breaking voice. Begin. Because inside you is not emptiness, it's potential, crushed by expectation, buried by roles, silenced by fear. And now is the time to dig, to remember that suffering is not the end of the story. Sometimes it's the only thing honest enough to burn away the lies. Nietzsche's life was filled with solitude, with rejection, with breakdowns of the mind and body. And still he wrote, he created, he spoke, because he knew life is not something you survive. It's something you shape. It's something you create meaning from. Not once, not in a grand moment, but every day. But here's the most dangerous thing about hopelessness. It feels final. It makes you believe that what you're feeling now is all you'll ever feel, that the fog won't lift, that the numbness is truth, that your best moments are behind you, that the people who left were right to go, that the dreams you once had were childish illusions. But Nietzsche would interrupt this lie, not with a pep talk, but with a confrontation. Because hope isn't built from comfort, it's built from fire. He'd ask you to stop romanticizing ease, stop chasing a version of life where nothing hurts, because that life doesn't exist. And if it did, it would leave you empty. You were not made to be coddled, you were made to become. And becoming requires friction. It requires the death of who you were, again and again, until what remains is not a mask, but a soul. If you feel tired, it's not because you're weak. It's because your spirit is trying to wake you up. Because deep down, you know you've settled. You've let convenience smother your courage. You've let routine replace truth. You've let people shape your story who never deserved to hold a pen. And now you're here, in the in-between. Not who you were, not yet who you could be. And this place hurts, because it's honest. It strips away the false progress, the fake smiles, the spiritual bypassing. It demands you stop hiding behind schedules, behind humor, behind competence, and admit you've lost your hunger, you've lost your why. You've been moving, but not growing. And Nietzsche, brutal as he was, offers you no sympathy, but he offers you something greater, a challenge to reclaim your will. Because in every moment you gave up a piece of yourself, in the silence you swallowed, in the boundary you didn't set, in the truth you didn't speak, you dimmed your own flame. And now it's time to fan it, because you can either decay quietly or rage into becoming. You can either let life happen to you, or you can become the kind of person who shapes it with both hands, trembling or not. And this doesn't mean you'll never fall again. You will. But Nietzsche didn't glorify perfection. He glorified resilience. He glorified the one who stands back up, not with arrogance, but with resolve. The one who dares to live without apology. The one who says, I may be afraid, but I will not be owned by fear. The one who learns to walk with sadness without becoming it. And perhaps this is your moment. Not the end, not the beginning, but the turn, the slow, invisible pivot where something ancient in you remembers. That you are not small, that you are not meant to just survive, to blend, to wither politely in someone else's idea of safety. You are meant to create meaning, to shape values from your pain, to build a life that feels like yours. Not one you inherited, not one you copied. A life earned. One quiet act of defiance at a time. And yes, it will cost you. You may lose people who liked your silence better than your truth. You may outgrow spaces that once felt like home. You may walk alone for a while, but you will no longer be a stranger to yourself. And that, Nietzsche would say, is worth everything. Because the soul was never meant to rot behind a mask. The soul was meant to struggle, to rise, to crack, to reach. And in that reaching, hope returns. Not because the pain is gone, but because you've decided that your spirit is stronger than your story. Because you've chosen again to live, even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, even when it's dark. Because something in you still believes, I can become something greater than this moment. And that belief, not ease, not comfort, not perfection, that belief is the beginning of freedom. Nietzsche never promised happiness. He offered something harder, something braver. The chance to become someone who no longer needs happiness, to live with meaning. Someone who, even in the depths of despair, still reaches for the next breath, the next truth, the next step. So if you're losing hope, don't look for rescue. Look inward, into the raw, unedited places of your being, and whisper to yourself, I will not die like this. Half-lived, half-truth, half-measured. Because the world may not hand you hope, but you can forge it. With your pain, with your fire, with your will. That's what Nietzsche wrote for you. Not comfort, but power. Not peace, but purpose. Not escape, but awakening. Because even now, especially now, you still have the strength to rise.